Today we are here, this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, to hear from the developer what is going on, and if ever you have got any questions that you need to ask, please do so. There is no bad question for as long as that question is necessary for the development of Egodini, and for as long as that question is in the interest of Bulawayo. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say we have had some meetings, management and this morning council to discuss the issue of Egodini. We could not invite all the major stakeholders for this meeting because it was going to be impossible. But with your invitation as media houses, it's just like we're inviting virtually everybody, because we are going to be able to tell a story. Let's sit down now, listen to the presentation by the developer, and we'll have a plenary session and a talk, after which we expect you to project exactly what is happening on the ground. I thank you.
Thank you very much for coming to the briefing session. What we will be doing today is giving you an update of the project. The way we are going to do it is maybe instead of it being more like just a briefing session, we're going to try to go into each section and try and give you a little bit of detail around that. Hopefully we won't take too long, but I think it's important to try and make sure that we were able to engage it on that basis. So what I will do is I will start really just to give us all just a recap, just to quickly recap on the project and what we are actually talking about. If you recall, if you recall, in terms of our development has got different phases, starting from phase 1, which is split into 2 phases, but we will deal with that. And then there is phase 2. So in phase 1, if we remember, we've got a taxi rank, and that's in phase 1. We've got informal traders in phase 1. We've got a bus terminal building and its platform. We've got fast food retail, anchor retail. That is phase 1. Why is that phase 1? It's phase 1 because it's informed by the market research that actually indicated that this is what will to kickstart the project, start with these facilities, and then as time goes on, you add other facilities. Like with any development, it's a natural progression of a development cycle where you start at a certain point and you add as the environment grows. If we talk about phase 1, we're still recapping here before we get into the meat. If we talk about phase 1, I indicated that there's a 1A and a 1B. Hopefully, I don't know if everyone at the back can see that. And then you will then have your phase 2. So in your phase 1A, which is what we are here to discuss today and see where we actually are, we've got informal traders, 1,176 stalls. We've got a taxi rank, that is what is supposed to be there, a Zuko rank, motor retail, and ablutions. So that there is the section that is phase 1A. So you will also see on site, the focus has really been on preparing to get us to be able to do the phase 1A area. So this is phase 1, so including 1B. In 1B, you will see the bus terminal building, which is over there. It's the fast food retail, which is over here. And then the grocery anchor, which is over there. So that is phase 1 in totality. Phase 1A will be the taxi rank, the informal traders, the platforms, and the ablutions and the offices here. So how we're going to do it is that when we complete phase 1A, we then move our holding backwards to this section so that we can then work on phase 1B. Now also, we just want to be able to contextualize issues. We're still going on with that, but this time instead it's in terms of the different stages of a development project. It's very important that we try to we put it this way so that we can try and follow and understand better as we unpack the different areas. So typically we will have 5 stages, 1 to 5, and in each of those stages we'll have planning and approvals. We'll have what we call here the enabling works. We will then have the civil works, then the top structures, so that's the brickwork, and then the commissioning. In your planning and approvals, your typical issues are your geotech, your topographical, your EIAs, and all your architectural engineering designs and plans and all those things. Typically, that takes about 10% of weighting in terms of a project. Your enabling works, these are the works that enable you to start construction. So in enabling works, you'll really be attending to the ground. As you will fully appreciate, any piece of ground is not uniform. There are some pieces of ground which are level. There are some pieces of ground that are hilly or rocky and got valleys and stuff like that. The name Egodini, that nickname, it comes from the fact that Gwabuli God. And because of that, you can even see it physically now. Lopengula Street here on my right is much higher than Best Street on my left. If you just follow 8th Avenue, you just walk down 8th Avenue extension, we're going to do that later, you will see that 8th Avenue extension goes down. Which means that the site, Egodini itself, the natural site itself, was never really a site which was easy for the purposes of undertaking a development. So, but before, like I said, you do a development, you have to prepare the ground, make sure it's level so that you can actually build, firstly, underground by installing all the services, and then secondly, building on top. I've also said different pieces of ground are different. So if we look across the road there by Ross Camp, you will see that the ground is perfectly level. Now what then happens is that when we start at enabling works, you are starting, if you've got a level piece of ground, on 0, and you are moving forward. But if you start on a difficult piece of ground, you are starting on minus to bring it to 0 in terms of construction works moving forward. So enabling works are that in terms of making those platforms on which you can actually build. Because of course you cannot build on the side of a mountain to say I'm trying to build a house or a whatever. You have to create platforms in order for you to do that. The next item will then be the civil works, what we call here civil works. We're referring to the installation of bulk services infrastructure. What is that? It's your bulk sewer pipes, your bulk water pipes, it's your electrical pipes, it's your stormwater pipes, all those things that go underground that make a building functional. Because without those things, a building can't be functional. You can't open a tap and water just flows out if you didn't do those things correctly. When you flush the toilet and so forth, everything must just go away. So those bulk services are very, very important in terms of making sure they're installed correctly and they have the right capacity and do what they need to do. In terms of Egodini, in terms of our project, when we arrived here on site, there were services here on site. There was electricity, there was water, there was stormwater, all those things were here when we arrived because there were properties here, there were buildings that were actually here. So those things were actually here. But when we looked at those things, when our engineers went in and they studied the size, the type, and all those things, they realized that this infrastructure is not ideal and it's not good for a redevelopment. If we were just refurbishing, so in other words, if we just came to Egodini and we said, look, they're just infrastructure here, we are not going to do any redevelopment, we're just going to paint what is there, we're just going to put new tiles, new basins and whatever, and we're going to use that same infrastructure, we could have done that. But because we're doing a total redevelopment, which meant we needed infrastructure with bigger capacity, we had to then look at that. And then top structures, that is what is the brick now coming out of the ground. That is what all our people are crying for, to say, when is the brick coming out of the ground. Because all these other things you are doing, we see it, is fine, it's okay, but when is the brick coming out of the ground? So that is what we will also look at in terms of our phase 1A of the project that we are dealing with. Timing, where are we, what's actually happening. Then there's commissioning. I think these phones are disturbing my... There's commissioning there, number 5, and then that's where it is. Now, if you look at this column here in terms of weighting, it says there the weighting of each of these stages. The weighting varies depending on the specifics of the project. Like I said, if we are going to Rose Camp and we have to build something at Rose Camp, a taxi rank at Rose Camp, once figure at Rose Camp, it's already flat, it's already, we can get into it. It's easy. But now let's talk about Egodini, phase 1A, the weightings, what was actually happening. Now for our phase 1A, planning and whatever is 10%, that's normal for most projects. Enabling works, because Egodi was not easy to do a development on it, we had to do a lot of enabling works. You will see that as we take you through the presentation. What was actually done? What is the context of that? What is the extent of that? That you will then see. That comprises approximately 35% of phase 1A. Remember I said enabling works, all they do, they enable you to get to a point where you can start building, right? But it's very important technically for that to be done. On another project, enabling works could be 0 or 10%, but on our phase 1A, they were 35%, and we'll explain that because you couldn't do enabling works only for phase 1, you have to do for the entire site area, for the entire phases before you can get there. Our civil works are quite extensive as well, 25%, like I said. We said, as a developer, we've got a 40-year lease with the Bulawayo City Council. The 40-year lease is a land lease. So City Council leases the land to Terracotta as Terracotta at our own cost and at our own risk, without any assistance from Bulawayo City Council. We finance and we build the development there. And we own or we lease, we are the tenant, the principal tenant for 40 years. After 40 years, we take the keys and we hand them back to Bulawayo City Council. Everything is yours. So if we are around for 40 years, it only makes sense, even from our own perspective as Terracotta, that we make sure that the underground services are done properly, are the correct services, the correct size, technical and designed properly, so that we do not have any issues. So that's the first issue, to say, why did we not just use the services that were there? Why did we go and have to put in our own services? Well, as an investor, we want to make sure that the services that are underground will last us forever. The second issue was that that site is going to be used by a lot of people. There's 1,100 informal traders that are operating from there. There's going to be taxis as well that are going to be moving in and out there. I think there's 100 taxi bays. They are pushing maybe about 30,000, 40,000 people every single day operating. That's taxis, the Zuko taxis, the Zuko buses, they're all doing that. So you need to make sure that the infrastructure is capable of handling that, especially because now if it rains and you've got now this huge area which is full of tar and paving, whatever, the rain cannot go into the ground. It's going to be surface runoff. If it's surface runoff, we need it to drain quickly and efficiently, and that is why we then decided we have to invest a lot of time, energy, and money in making sure the services are done correctly. But we will take you through what are those services, what has been done. But that is the reason why we did it. And like I say again, if we were building, like let's say if you are redeveloping, if you are renovating your own house, you already have a house. At that house, you've already got a water supply, you've already got an electrical supply, you've already got a sewer supply. It will be very easy to say, I'm not going to change anything underground, I'm just going to renovate my house. I'm going to paint, change tiles, and so forth. But if maybe you take your house and you say, well, now I'm going to put student accommodation on my house. So I'm building a 3-story, then I'm going to need bigger electricity, bigger water supply, bigger sewer takeaway. So you then also have to start by working underground. So it just depends. That's why it says here the weighting of this activity in a project varies depending on the type of project. So in our situation, that weighting is about 25%. When it comes to top structures, now for us, the taxi rank, the bus rank, the informal trader stores, they are simple, good structures, and because of that, their weighting is about 25% of the project. Then commissioning is the last thing. In our project is about 5%. That deals with things like your compliance certificates, your electrical, fire, plumbing, and then eventually, once you have all your compliance certificates in the file, council can then issue with an occupation certificate, which means that it is safe now for human beings to go and operate and use those facilities. So these are the stages. So moving forward now, when we then talk about what have we been doing on site, we're going to be talking about them in the context of these stages and the weighting of these stages from in relation to phase 1A of the project. So if we start in terms of phase 1A planning and approvals, the first item that is there, number 1, planning and approvals, we'll obviously go through the descriptions and then we'll look at the status there. So planning and approvals, very simple exercise. Our topographical studies, our geotechnical studies, our AIA approvals, bulk electrical supply, bulk water supply, sewer, telecommunication and NASA factories are very simple, straightforward. You prepare your documentation. We use qualified, registered professional team, architects, engineers, all those different. They did that, they submitted, got their approvals there. Those planning and approvals, let's look at the timelines there. It's important to have the timelines. So we start with the first line item there. Council announces site handover to Terracotta. That was done in January 2018. After council announced that site handover, some of the stakeholders who were physically occupying the site, the informal traders and their taxi associations, indicated that they would like to have a meeting with council so that from their perspective, they make sure that if they are being removed from Egodini, when Egodini is completed, it is them who will then be returned Egodini. It will not be a different group of people. So yes, this is what the stakeholders required. There was also residents associations in those sessions. The other issue for residents associations and the issue for residents associations, but it was another issue for taxi and informal traders as well, was to say that is happening in Egodini. We need to make sure that work, can it benefit residents of Bulawayo? The employment, can it benefit residents of Bulawayo? The companies that are working there, ideally, can those be companies that are based in Bulawayo? So that those companies employ people of Bulawayo. So that was another issue that the Residents Association and the Taxi Association and Informal Trade Association raised. Okay, we engaged and then we agreed on that. And they said over and above you trying to support local business, can we make sure that that employment, that local business, everything is done on site, Egodini. It's not done somewhere where we can't see as ordinary people. We need an area where we know we can go because we might also want to register there. We asked them, where would you want that to be? They said it must be on site Egodini. We then chose this building here and we renovated it to become the contact center. So this building is an old building that was already there. We just renovated to be the contact center, which contact center is what the relevant stakeholders indicated to us to say we want jobs and everything to be done. So where we are here, this is the business center. So companies, they come, they register here with our operatives. When we want to find somebody who supplies bricks or whatever, we go into the database, we pull the names, and we issue the tenders to those people and they submit. Once we had agreed that with the relevant stakeholders, they gave us actual site, they agreed to say, okay, now that we are all happy, we can move off. Then we actually had site handover, the actual site handover, where council was then handing over to us Terracotta would then have been March 2018. In March 2018, as soon as we got site handover, our professional team, architects, engineers, whatever, the guys who were doing designs for the redevelopment, there were certain designs that they could do before physically accessing the site. But then to finish those designs, they had to physically, so they only were able to physically access the site March 2018. Because there were people who was occupied, they wouldn't be able to do that. So they accessed the site, and then from April until May 2018, they finished all their designs, their drawings, their studies, their reports, everything in order for us to submit and get approvals. Once that actually happened, we quickly then did the relevant approvals for EIA, the demolition bulk earthwork approval and permits. We did that June 2018, we got those permissions. Now, who were these people who then were involved in planning and approvals? Because remember, we've said the resident association, they all said we want local companies, local people to be working. We said, okay, we've renovated the contact center as Terracotta, let's try to support what the stakeholders have told us. So you'll see there, we've got our companies, AC Hope, Land Surveyor Bulawayo, Matrolab, Geotech, they're not in Bulawayo, that one is supposed to be Pretoria, South Africa, sorry about that. HBN Simel and Architects, Town Planning, Architects, those are Bulawayo, TKDS, that's South Africa, Peak Consulting Engineers, Electrical, Mechanical, Fire Consultants, they're both in Bulawayo and in South Africa. We've got the FIJ Consulting Consortium, which is both Bulawayo and South Africa, doing the civil engineering and the structural engineering. So from that perspective, we then said this is the design team that we're actually then using. Having moved forward, we then said, okay, let's start doing the work, guys. So remember, stage 1, we said was planning. Then we move now to stage 2, which is now the enabling works. Remember, the enabling works, all they do, they just allow you to get to a stage where you can start building underground. Thereafter, you build on top of the ground. If you've got a beautiful site, flat, like Rose Camp, like I said before, stage 1 is very simple. Stage 2 is non-existent, 0%. You don't do anything. You just start putting services underground. Now, from our perspective, no, we had a bit of a complication. If we all remember Egodini, Egodini was a very different site to what you will see today. Okay, so maybe we'll start there. We'll just go down each of the points. So you'll see there, we had to, first of all, obviously it's a construction site, we had to hoard it off. We did that, 950 meters of hoarding, that was complete. Thereafter, there were existing structures. Those structures, we had to strip those structures, because in terms of our environmental management plan that we submitted to EMMA, we had said that we are going to try to recycle as much material as possible. So things like roof sheeting, roof trusses, things like window frames, things like doors, door frames, and stuff like that, those that were still in good condition in the old buildings. We stripped that, we put it aside, and Bulawayo City Council came and collected that material. Bulawayo City Council auditors checked everything. They went and deposited it at the stores so that it can be used at other facilities of the municipalities, whether it's clinics, schools, or whatever it is. After that, there was a borehole that we had on site. We had also said, in terms of our environmental management plan to EMMA, we had also said that we're going to try to use borehole water to do, because we've got a lot of bulk earthworks, so it means that we have a lot of dust control that we need to be able to do during construction. So we're going to then try and use that to keep, instead of using municipal water, so that we do that. So we've got a borehole on site, but it's not important here, it's just important in the context of that we didn't use municipal water for actual construction. We used borehole water up to this stage. And then from there, we have the contact center, which is this building here, 350 squares. Like I said to you, we renovated that, that's complete. And then we then had to get in there and start doing the work. So the first thing we did, we demolished those existing buildings, about 5,000 square meters, that is complete. We had to clear the site. There was trees, there was top layers of cotton, of the black soils that we had to remove. And you can't use that on a site, so those have to be dumped somewhere. So those go to Pelandaba, the municipal dumping sites, and that was used to fill. So City Council will tell us, this soil, go and fill those pits that have been left in borrowing pits in different areas, because those are dangerous to animals roaming around, and even small children, when they go playing, they can fall into those things. So council would tell us, go and fill that hole, go and fill that hole. And that's what we would do there. And then from there, after that, we cleared the site. That's 56,000 square meters. We had to rip the old tar that was there, which was not in good condition, of no use anyway. That was another 36,000 square meters. And then we had to we started now doing the big enabling works. So there was a mountain all on this side. And that mountain, if you stand where we are standing right here, if you go along Lopemula Street, I think maybe that's probably about 200 and something meters. If you go along down that way, then you will see that the mountain was all the way up to there. But today you see the mountain is gone from there going forward. So we had to cut that whole mountain, and then we had to go and fill Egodini so that we can have the platform. So we cut to stockpile 50,000 square meters. We filled from stockpile 44,000 square meters, and then we've got a small stockpile left, 5,600 square meters of certain material that we wanted to keep. Now, just to contextualize as well, if we're talking about 50,000 square meters, cubic meters, not square meters, sorry. We're talking about 50,000 cubic meters of stockpile. On the density of the material that we had, it's equal. It's actually slightly more, but it's around 1 ton. So 1 cube equal to 1 ton. So based on that 50,000 is equivalent to about 50,000 tons. 50,000 tons. To further contextualize that, if you take a tipper truck or these tri-axle trucks running up and down the highways, maximum payload or gross maximum ban, 30,000, the 30 tons maximum payload. Maximum payload, 30 tons. So 30 tons, if you divide 50,000 tons by 30 tons, I think you get 1,000 something, 1,200 gonyets, if you want to put it that way. So that, just to contextualize, to actually say this bulk earthworks, what was it? And this bulk earth, like I said, is very important because you had to create the platform. Without the platform, we had to bring the development from a minus position to a 0 position so that we can actually start the development moving forward. The technical risk involved with that was great, but somebody had to take that technical risk, and we said we will take that technical risk to actually do that, and which we actually did successfully. Now, when did we actually do this? So these enabling works, we started, if you look at the permissions there, we started June 2018, we finished August 2018 to renovate the contact center. Like I said before, to renovate it is extremely simple, and so it doesn't take long. We too, like how we renovated this contact center, there were some buildings here at Egodini. There were some public toilets that were here. We could have chosen to say, let's just renovate those public toilets. Enjoy. Old design, small structure, not modern looking. But we said, no, it's not what we want to do for our development. So demolish those structures that are there, and we'll build proper modern toilets such that when our people go through a toilet in Johannesburg, when I catch the bus at Park Station, and when I get off the bus here at Egodini, I must feel that, wow, my home city, my country, is actually on par with what's happening with other countries. I must not catch a bus in Park Station, and when I drop off at Egodini, I say, wow, these guys are still using 1960s, 1950s architecture. No, we made a conscious decision. We could have done it, but we made a conscious decision that we don't want to do that. So we opened, so it took us just a mere 3 months. So if we had been doing renovations here, it wouldn't have taken us long, and life would have moved on. We opened our contact center in October 2018. Remember, the stakeholders had said, we want everything to be done from the contact center. Job, adverts, everything was done at once. So we had to fix the contact center first before we could start procuring or employing abantu. So we opened the contact center in October 2018, and then we appointed the contractor in November 2018. The construction industry break every December. There's a when the whole construction industry shuts down. So obviously when we appointed the contractor in November 2018, we said, no, you'll come in January 2018. The contractor came in January 2019, sorry. The contractor came in January 2019 and he finished in November 2019. The enabling works. So that gives you an idea. Who are these people who did this work? Okay, let's take a look. So you got AC Hope, a company from Bulawayo, that's the land surveyor. Matrolab is from South Africa, this is the correct slide. They're from Victoria, they did the geotechnical engineer. FIJ, civil engineers, they fly South Africa. Jared Goddard, civil contractor from Bulawayo. They also did our compaction test. Then Pump and Steel gave us some holding with house tests and stuff. So these are the people during the enabling work stage, the service providers. I only put here the bigger ones, not the small ones. These are the people who actually participated there. What are these enabling works? Because also, what happened is that we see comments on social media where some people say no work has ever been done Egodini. So we are saying, remember, when you talk about a development project, there are different stages. There's stage 1 to 5. So stage 1 was done. Now here's stage 2, enabling works. And this is the civil contractor on site at the time. I'm always proud to show this picture because you'll see there's an excavator there, 330D Caterpillar, huge excavator. That is a mining machine. Normal construction machines would not be able to do the work that we did here during the time frame. They would still be doing civil works right now. But because we're using Jared Goddard, because they do contract mining, they have the right size and the right type of equipment, and they have the technical expertise of handling huge tonnages of material. Remember I said it was 50,000 cubic meters of material that they were actually handling. I would just like to play just something for you so that you can see during enabling works what was actually happening, the type of equipment that we were actually using. And I always say, there's my excavator there, the large excavator. I always say to the town clerk, any day, if in any way in Bulawayo this excavator should work, please call me so I can come and take a picture, because I want to see a project in Bulawayo with that type. So it's one of the jokes that we sometimes have, but this is the type of equipment that we needed in order to do this type of work.
Trucks. There we are. Loading 3 trucks at a time. Grader is mixing in situ material with new material on top. This is where we're dumping to fill in. It looks like we have got sufficient material on site to do all the infill, and that we will need to bring nothing on site. But the loader over there is also loading trucks, 2 trucks.
Now, when we talk about enabling works, you know, there's a beautiful joke that goes around where people say, these guys at Egodini, they are moving sand from left, they put it right. Then they take it from right, they put it the corner. Then they take from the corner, they put it over there. What we are doing when we are doing that, we are actually doing civil engineering. And it's very, very important because we've disturbed the entire ground here. We do not want to build things on top, the ground shifts, and then you have things that start to crack. So it's very important that we make sure that we build the platforms correctly, we compact those platforms correctly, we allow those platforms to rest and to settle and to be able to shift down correctly so that we can get the same compaction in the platforms that we build as what Mother Nature gives naturally in platforms that have been developed over billions of years to get that compression so you can just come and build a building on top. It's a normal process. It's just time consuming. Yes, when you just look at it, it looks like Labantu, they're just pushing sand all over the place. But it's actual real work, it's a real engineering work that is being done. And you can see it there, that being explained on that video. Now, after having done that, remember I said we worked 11 months. Having done all of that, with that huge yellow equipment on site, doing all the things that they were doing, all we were doing was getting the site to the point of zero. Where if somebody else was given another site, they were just going to start from zero and move forward. We had to do all that work just to get to the point of zero. So having done that, we said, okay, no, it's fine. Now that we're at point of zero, we're actually going to start the civil works in terms of which we describe as the installation of bulk services. Sewer, water, all those wonderful things. So on site, remember I said there were buildings, there were services, but we chose to say when we inspected those services, say, no. These services will not work for Egodini. We have to rip these services out, we have to remove them. For you to remove those services, you first have to trace them. You ask somebody where the plans are, no, whatever. Those are also, now you have to physically look at the plans and physically trace, because sometimes people put things later which are not in the plans, and then be able to rip them out. So the first issue when we started there, we had to decommission existing sewers and reposition a lot of stuff. Then we started doing the work. What we wanted to put ourselves there. So there we go. We had to install new bulk sewer lines, 946 meters, almost a kilometer, 100% complete. We had to install the new sewer manholes, all the inspection points for that thing. We've got about 10 of those 100% complete. And these require a lot of work, these things. We connected that sewer to municipal line. We will show you a municipal line where we connected the sewer. It's flowing, the sewer that's coming from Roscam, Ntlandlela. We've diverted, we've connected that. We had to install new bulk water supply, 524 meters. Install new water valves. Here they are. 8. We always joke with these ones here for phase 1B. We always joke with some of our council colleagues in the technical team to say, guys, can you see we are using the real stuff here? We are not. So just go and look at your own installation, because we want to put proper equipment and whatever this is for water inspection within Egodini. So we are trying to do this thing to the real standards. We're not doing something which is substandard. We connect to the water supply. That's one. That's zero complete. We're waiting for a water meter. When we start our tour, we will show you where we started, where this water, because the water meter is supposed to be right outside here. Install new bulk stormwater services, 1,246 meters, 1.2 kilometers of underground bulk. Now, when we look at this, the reason why we want this to be done, remember I've said there's 1,000 informal traders which are there. Imagine there's a sudden rain and it's heavy rain. You want that place to drain very quickly so that informal traders, public transport users, they're not affected by that thing. That is why we could never have used the infrastructure that was already there. It was just not according to us for what we wanted to achieve for this redevelopment. It was not up to the required or standard that we wanted. But of course, this is 2020. Those things maybe were built in the 50s or 40s or 60s or whenever it was. So it was very good then, but times have moved now. And then all these different. So you'll see where we are in terms of our stages completion, and then our electrical supply and fire, those are still at 20 for phase 1A. The reason why those are 20 is because you put them, once you're finalizing your top structures, you build them in, then you put them around on the periphery. So that's the programming of that. So those are the actual other things. Now, What is the timelines for these civil works? Civil works, remember, we're talking about installation of underground services. So, like I said, it depends. Other people, now, maybe other people might want to say you only have started when we see a brick. But remember, we said at development there are different stages from number 1 to number 5. So when it comes to civil works, we got our permit in October 2020. We procured all the material suppliers and the civil contractor there in November. We had our annual construction industry break in December 2020. We then had told ourselves that we'll hit the ground running January 2021. But before we could do that, government announced the lockdown. So we actually only hit the ground in 15 months. So already we were 2 months, 2.5 months behind schedule. But we thought to ourselves, you know what, it doesn't matter. Even if we are behind schedule, let's try and push, let's see if we can catch up, let's try and work as hard as we can. And I think that was a good thing, and we looked at that. We then went, and then there was another national lockdown, 40% capacity. That was announced on 29 June 2021 up to 7 September. With that one, you were allowed to operate at 40% if you applied. So we applied to national government. They asked us some questions. We gave them supporting document. Then they gave us an approval. You can work during that lockdown. So for that, we are very grateful to national government for assisting us with that. So we worked, and then we expect ourselves to complete now in a few weeks' time that we thought that we were going to be able to complete early. Besides some of these challenges that we have, we will also go through where we also did have some challenges accessing certain materials that affected our timelines. We didn't anticipate that, but they did do. And there are certain things that if you can't access timely, you are able to do other things. But there are certain things that if you can't access, they actually have an impact on the whole thing. Now let's look at the people who, during the civil works, the installation of services, who are these people who were able, right here in this business center, to work with? Again, we've got AC Hope, the land surveyor. Obviously, we're doing civil work, so Mr. Hope is always there. We've got Matroland, we've got FIJ, we've got JR Goddard, we've got Pro Plastics. So all of the water pipes, sewer pipes, all those plastic pipes, Pro Plastics gave us. The valves, these valves here, we bought them from J-Man, but the type of valve that we purchased, they had to specially import this one for us. So this one, if we understand correctly, on imports, the supply chain logistics issues, we did have some delays with the supplier of these valves that we were putting in. But those delays, they only affected in certain areas because we were able to do other things in the meantime. We got Hume pipes for the stormwater, for the manholes, the lids, the rings, the covers. We got PPC for the bricks. We have China, Zimbabwe, Boacheng. Aggregates, we got Davis Granite up the road. Sands, we got Inkwali. And then the balls were pump and installation. They did that work. You can see again, as the resident association, as the stakeholders have requested us, please support Bulawayo companies. We've tried to support Bulawayo companies where we can. However, if Bulawayo companies don't do that particular thing, for example, then we go anywhere, Harare, wherever, and then we get that thing. If we cannot get it within Zimbabwe, then as a third step, we then can go outside and try to import that thing. But what we've tried to say is that we're trying to support local business, local industries. Now, when we do that, right, it creates some kind of challenge in the development program, development process, if the local suppliers are unable to do timely supply. If they are able to do timely supply, no problem, no issues. But where maybe we have challenges, then this is what we actually go through and we actually experience. And so we continue to support our local businesses. Some of the challenges that we had with the civil works, remember what we said, is the installation of bulk services, bulk water, bulk sewer, bulk stormwater, all those things. So we were affected, yes, by COVID, the lockdowns. We lost just under 5 months. But we said, no, man, we've lost under 5 months. We're going to try and double up, triple up. We're going to try and see if we're going to, we gave ourselves a challenge to double up and triple up and see whether we can catch up there. Like I said, we had supplier delays in delivering certain materials to site. So we did have a problem in terms of the stormwater. Now the stormwater is a very integral part, because remember I said with the stormwater, you have to make sure, especially by the informal traders, you have to make sure, especially by the taxi rank, that stormwater can drain quickly. So having had those delays, we then had to then say, okay, maybe can we look at other suppliers. We had our local supplier, they got a factory here. We decided to say, you know what, at some point in time, we have all been, as business people, been in a situation whereby you get given an opportunity and you want to work on that opportunity and actually grow from there. So what we then said, we said, okay, you've got a factory here in Bulawayo, we see you are creating the jobs, we see your factory has got its slight capacity challenges, but what we will do, you are going to affect our program, but what we will do is that we will stick with you, we will run with you, because the community has asked us to support local businesses. So we will take the flack, we will take the pressure, but at the end of the day, we will be able to say we supported a local business. So that is what we said we are going to be able to do. Another issue that we had as well is you give a supplier an order of items. So for example, you order 80 items on a particular order. After ordering those issues, the supplier says, great, okay, how do you want these things delivered? We say to the supplier, according to our construction program, we need this material on this day, this one on this day, this one on this day, this one on this day. So can you please, Mr. Supplier, schedule your production schedule and delivery schedule to match our construction schedule? We all agree on that. But because of COVID logistical challenges and because of the challenges that we all know being here in Zimbabwe, it's not very easy sometimes. So a supplier, like if we're talking about this room, if you renovate, I want tiles, I want bricks, I want windows, and then at the end, I want paint. The supplier looks at his order, the supplier comes and says, well, I've got the paint now, let me come and drop off the paint. And you say, well, Mr. Supplier, I don't need the paint now, I only need the paint in 6 months' time. He says, well, that's what I've got. Okay, give me the paint, here's your money. But can you give me the bricks, because I need the bricks edged. So some of these challenges, but we understand as well that sometimes it doesn't work 100%, but it's life. That's what actually happens. So we did have a few of those that actually affected us. How did we then deal with those? Proactive management of suppliers, assisting them where we can, to say, if we say, will it help you if we pay you in Forex? Then they'll say, yes, because I've got to import certain inputs to manufacture this thing. Okay, maybe let's try to do that. Also, what did we do to mitigate other steps? We said, well, we lost a lot of time during the year. Maybe during the construction industry break of 2021, can we try and catch up? So we applied to national government again to say, national government, please give us permission when the NEC construction industry shuts down the whole industry in December 2021. Please give us permission to work in December 2021. Again, they looked at it, submit this, submit that, okay, and then they gave us an approval. So again, we're extremely grateful to national government for them supporting us to be able to work during the construction industry break to try and catch up on areas where we are clearly behind. Notwithstanding all these mitigating factors, we had our own targets to say we want to do this by such and such, and we were unable to do those things no matter how we tried to push and manage those issues. It took us longer, and we were unable to do that at that point in time. But we continue to push and see where we get to, because like we said, it's very important for us that not only must a supplier give us a quality product, it's also important for us to say, let us try to support local business. So even if the supplier is taking longer to supply, let's go with that, and we will just have to carry the blame for that. But at least at the end of the day, we supported local business, we supported local job creation. If we just look at some of the issues, because again, unfortunately, we haven't been able to share this information with a lot of people to actually say, when we're putting all these services underground, what are we doing, where are we going, what is it for, and all. So there's just a few things. I'm sure there'll be a video. You'll see when we go on site there, a lot of it is buried underground, but when we knew that we were coming here from last week, we told the guys to stop burying any further, leave certain sections open, so that when we come there, we can actually see what we are actually talking about. Where is the... You will also see, when we go on site, you will also see that we are getting to a point where we are about to come out of the ground. Remember, stage 2, we said we are preparing the ground. Stage 3, we said we are building underground. So now we are getting to a point where we are coming out of the ground, where we can then go to stage 4, where we are building on top of the ground. I want to see if I can find something. Oh, is this the thing here? So here you see that blue pipes, that is the water running parallel. You see the manholes already. They were complete because the sewer was done first. So you'll be able to see. And this thing is crisscrossing over the site. And what they do, we started with sewer because that's the deepest. And then from there you come to the different levels. Water, stormwater, and you keep coming up. Because that's what the regulations say we must do, and so that is how we actually did it. We took time, we made sure we used the correct materials, the correct standards, and we used the best contractor to be able to do this work correctly. We're not taking any chances. If I go to the next one, you can see it's all over. This thing, it runs left, right, it just runs everywhere. Right? So if I go to the next one as well, you will see our guys, they're in there also doing the brick manholes. These are the ones for the stormwater. Again, like I indicated, very important exercise. Take your time, do this properly. If you mess this thing up and you build something on top, you are in trouble. You are in trouble. So this, we don't play with this. If I mess up a building, it's easy. I just bash the wall down and start again. But I mess this thing up, I'm in big trouble. So we make sure that we got the correct people again, experienced bricklayer service provider doing that kind of work. Again, to crisscross, the last few sections that were still outstanding, we indicated that don't close them. We want to show the guys what is actually happening. Okay, so that will continue and continue. Okay, there's a different area. This one was very important because this during construction industry break. It's raining. Construction industry closed the whole country. Our guys are working on site. You will also see they dump the pipes there. There are some concrete pipes over there on the back. So everywhere they're supposed to work, they go dump the concrete pipes doing that. And it's very easy for somebody, it's very easy to understand when somebody says there's nothing there. Because these guys are working in trenches. When you're standing on the fence, I won't go to standing in a trench. But if you go inside, you then see that particular one. And you can see the red ground is still wet and whatever, but our guys are actually still working. Right. So that was civil works. What we are calling here as installation of bulk services. So the construction underground. We are then saying, look, this work took us a long time. It took us much longer than we wanted, but there's nothing we can do because this work has to be done correctly. It has to be. This work has to actually be done correctly. So let's be able to do that. The fortunate thing is that during that construction industry break, we were able to try to catch up on the time that we lost. But of course we didn't fail, we failed to catch up on all the time, but we tried to catch up to say, okay, we want to complete now, so that from now we can do the overground construction, because the underground is then done. We then come then to the phase 4, building, phase 4, where we actually say, right, in phase 1A, these are the structures that we are going to be able to build quickly. So the taxi rank roads, we're saying, can we close and we compact and whatever. We say we're going to be able to start that work around the 7th of February. We hoped by the 25th of March, those roads will actually be completed. That's not a complicated exercise, of course. Rain and whatever, it's a difficult season to work, but we think we should be able to achieve that. If we can't do that, then obviously we will then look at C. We've got our taxi islands and our taxi rank, our steel work that we need to be able to do. What we are also going to try to do is to be able to say, over, right? So for example, the taxi rank and the whatever, let's finish it, let's try and hand it over, and then informal traders, that will actually be much later, let's finish it and let's hand it over. This construction work, in terms of phase 1A of the project, if you remember, if I can just go back, if you remember there, a typical development project, the stages, our phase 4, you can see is 25%. If somebody else was building something else for him, it might be 50% or 60%. It just depends on the type of project. But because it's in a phase 1A, bulk earthworks and civil works was such a huge component. So you can see where we are, much better Damaji, end of this month, I'm civil works. It means in terms of phase 1A, we're at 10 plus 35, that's 45, plus 25. How much that's? We are 70% for phase 1A. That's where we actually are now. We were meant to have finished, but we were unable to do that for the various reasons that I've actually explained. But we are moving progressively there. Could it have been faster? Yes, it could have been faster. Was it an absolute disaster? No, we don't think it was an absolute disaster, but we keep moving in terms of that. Right. I think I would have your presentation. Oh, yes, there we go. I think I've done that. So, yeah. So in terms of doing that, how do people get to do work at Egodini? The way they get to do work here is the way that the community said they must do work. So you have to first come and register at the business center in the database. Only whenever there's a work package that is coming and we need to procure something or we need to appoint a contractor, we only ever do it through the business center, the database. So if we're wanting to get reinforcing steel, we go into the database, who are the suppliers of reinforcing steel? We pull out those people, and then the request for quotation is then only sent to those people registered on the database. So that is how we actually do it. And like I said, we also want to encourage our own indigenous businesses to to also come and register, because we've seen that a lot of businesses that are registered here are not necessarily the indigenous ones. So we want to encourage them to also come and register.
Are you happy with the progress that has been going on here? And maybe tell us any pressure that you have been facing, besides from our residents, about this project. What has it been like?
We have had immense pressure from the stakeholders, starting with the residents, other stakeholders like the transport companies, vendors, and indeed government, on what is going on. And from the briefing that we have been getting from Terracotta, our relations, as I have indicated earlier on, are cordial, because we have been getting a briefing, and we are happy with the briefing that we have been getting and the progress that has been made so far. Of course, the problem that we have been having is when people ask us, we find it very difficult to just disclose that information, because this is a contractual obligation. As you know, we are bound by the terms and conditions of the contract. We cannot just give any information as and when people want it. That's the pressure that we have. And you are also aware, we have been promising you that we will be having a media briefing where the developer will come and explain all the delays. And we have not been able to have those briefings on time. And that one on its own is a pressure, especially coming from you, the media, and the other stakeholders, of course, in any form.
But now, from what's happening on the ground, as council, are you happy with what you are saying?
Yes, we are happy with the briefing, and we are happy with the development that has taken place so far. Although, of course, we would have wanted to see this development at a much higher stage than it is now. But in any contract, there are some delays, and where there are delays, applications are made for to vary the contract, or and once those are given in terms of the contract, there's no issue.
Right, in a scenario that come April, it comes and goes, the contractor still has an hand over the site to you, what action might the City Council take?
We have spoken to the contractor. The contractor is with us, and we have made it clear to him that those targets that have been given, they have to be met. Otherwise, it is going to give us too much pressure. And not only us as a partner in this development, but them as well. And we have said to them, please manage the media, talk to the media. We don't want a situation where the media puts too much pressure on us, the other partner. And when we refer them to you, as per our understanding that we don't have to talk about the development, but we have to talk about our relationship, and you fail to respond, that puts pressure on us. I can assure you, he is here also. He has already indicated that he's going to stick to his timings, and we hope he's going to stick to his timings.
Thank you, Sir. Thank you.